Hi, welcome back to the software development part of the Inspiro banking example that we're working through. So just to get started, we're going to go back to our banking diagram and just talk you through a few little changes I made. So I've kind of simplified the diagram by removing the balance increased and balance decreased events and just combine them into a transaction completed event. I also just made a link here from when we open an account, if we have a opening opening balance we want to deposit, then that's also going to cause a transaction. So just want to map that out. And then just for a bit of flair, we're going to get a list of our monthly statements and generate PDF documents with them in from those, just to show that we can easily link to external libraries to do whatever you want. And then the last piece is I've added a business banking context just to show how each of these contexts map to a microservice and to micro frontends. Okay, so so you could have potentially a team for each of these, or you can manage your deployment separately and so on. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to go to generate code. So I'm picking a template now. It's going to be a C# based template that's going to give us a Blazor front end and Web API backends. And we can generate our code and download it into downloads folder. So just extract this quickly. And then we should save this into a source control repository. So I'm just going to create one here called banking. This should probably be done through whatever tools you normally use. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so it's empty. And I'm just copy both of our contexts into this repo. You probably have multiple repos, one for each or whatever. It depends on how you set up your source control, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And we are going to commit this stuff quickly. Okay, and we're going to just work on the personal banking one because the business banking one's empty. And all we need to do is open up the Visual Studio project or solution. And basically the solution is going to be made up of our main code, which is going to be this project over here. And then we're going to have two ways of hosting that code. So we're going to have a backend API, and then we'll have a Blazor front end, as in our website, to run things, just for convenience sake. Using Postman a lot gets quite annoying quite quickly. So first things first, let's have a think about what we want to do. If we go back to our diagram, this customer is effectively interacting with a bank account, which is this account piece here. And we should have some state for that account. And a good starting place for that is basically everything we used in the when we opened the account, plus some extra info about like maybe the account balance and so on. So what we basically need to do now is just go find where that code is. So we just go to our main code here. We look for the aggregates because the account is an aggregate. We can have multiple aggregates in a context, and we find the aggregate state file. So at the moment there's nothing there, and we're going to just replace it quickly with the power of copy paste inheritance with what we want to save. So we basically want to keep an account ID and the person's name, PPS number, the address, date of birth, if they're married or not. This is a lot of the information we grabbed when we were opening the account. We don't need to know the opening deposit anymore, and we don't need a timestamp, but we do need an account balance that we're going to keep. You'll notice that there's these attributes that have been added. So PII stands for personally identifiable information. So this is GDPR tracking, and basically it will, allow us to clean up data quickly and easily to stay compliant with GDPR. And sensitive data would allow us to encrypt data at rest very easily too, probably automatically in the future. So that's our first piece. We just do the accounts state. Then we can look at what happens when we actually open an account. So we're going to have a open account command get generated, and we need to basically handle that. So this open account handler will validate the command. So you can look for proper structure of the command or not, and you can validate against the current state. And there's a basic example where you can do that. I'm not going to go too deep into that because we do have a few things to work through. So what I'm going to do is just replace this with something I've worked through before and explain through what what's happening here exactly. So, and okay, we're missing a few little pieces here. Let me just create the missing classes quickly, and we'll come back to this in a second. I'll describe this all now. Just okay. So basically, when we get a command, we're going to validate it firstly. Then we're going to check if all the information that we got is correct. Maybe even a little bit more complicated than the standard validation stuff. And we can raise things like, person needs to be in Ireland, so we can check if they're coming from Ireland. If they're not, we'll effectively raise a know your customer alert, and we'll say to the user, sorry, we only operate in the Irish market at the moment. You can do whatever you want here. Just an example of like a simple check that we can have, which kind of maps to this over here. Then what we're going to basically do is, if everything's okay with the command, we are going to raise an event saying that the account was opened. Okay, and we're just going to use all the information we got from the command here, and we're going to add a timestamp. So that's one event that gets raised. A second event that would be of interest to us is if someone actually had a opening balance, we're going to want to create a transaction for that. So, and we create the transaction by raising an event again. So the transaction is pretty simple. We just say have a opening transaction here. We have our account ID again, the details of the transaction that we want, the type it is, and so on, and the amount we're going to go in there, and then we raise we put a timestamp on it. So this event will then flow through the system and get saved, and then it will get, once it's saved, it'll get passed on to events appliers who are going to then need to change our state. So what we need to do next is go find that account opened event applier, and we need to change. What we're going to do here is change our state of our aggregate based on the information of the what was raised in the event. So our account state, account is our aggregate, and account state is the aggregate states. So this is pretty easy. Here we're pretty much copying and pasting um, the data across. So we're going to just do one-to-one mapping from an event into our state, um, because it's the pretty much the opening thing. It's easy enough for us to do. So I hope that makes sense so far. So the other thing that would happen when we opened an account was we had that transaction completed event that we raised. So we need to also um, um, manipulate our aggregate based on those events coming in. So um, all we're going to do here is change this to say that our new state, let's just rename this event transaction. Our new state is basically whatever our previous state was, um, but the account balance is now going to be whatever the account balance was previously plus whatever the transaction amount was. So if it's a positive transaction, like a deposit, then the account balance goes up. If it was a negative amount for the transaction, like a fee, then the account balance goes down. It's pretty much that simple as it is. If we go back to our diagram, the next thing is we're going to deposit money. So we go back to our commands, go to the deposit money handler, and we are going to effectively, when we get that command coming in, we're going to do validation again. If we're happy with everything, we're going to raise a new transaction completed event. And in this case, our transaction was probably done at some sort of branch it could be an ATM, I don't know. But it's a deposit type of transaction, and the amount is whatever we had coming in there too. And we timestamp it again, and we raise the event. And then as the pattern goes, you'll see that we basically need to do the corresponding um, event. And in this case, we've already done it because we got transaction complete. We already did it when we were opening the account, but effectively the loop, just to close the loop, go back effectively would have been this transaction completed event. And the bank balance changes, the account balance changes again when that happens. And then if we go on to make an ATM withdrawal, this gets a little bit repetitive, but it's pretty easy to do. See, none of the logic here is super complex. All the security and everything else is dealt with for you, so you don't need to worry about those details. You just need to worry about what are your business, what are the finer business details that you care about. And that's what we're filling in here. So when we do an ATM withdrawal, we validate that the command is in a good state and so on. Then if everything's good, we're going to raise 2 transactions this time, and potentially a third, right? So the 2 transactions we're going to raise are one for whatever the user was trying to do, which is they're going to be withdrawing so much money from their account or whatever, and you'll see the amount here is now becoming a negative. But there'll also be a fee associated. So we'll have a second transaction for the fee. And in our case, our ATM withdrawals maybe cost us 50 cents. Okay. And if the customer has now overdrawn their account, so their balance after both of those transactions is negative, then we're going to raise an account has become overdrawn event. And we can then later on then charge overdrawn fees and so on for that. So we don't have this in place yet, but we don't need it too much at this point. And then we can do pretty much the same thing when we get to the branch. This is going to be nearly identical and probably should um, centralize this logic a little bit. The only real difference here is the details of where this is happening. So at a branch over here, and the fee is now €5 instead of 50 cents. So otherwise, it's exactly the same. And the other thing we wanted to look at then was, okay, we have this case now where we're raising this event here potentially, so we should go and add the event handler for that. And again, this is basically what we're going to do is validate the command, and then we're going to raise a fee. So in this case, we have an overdrawn account fee, and it costs €20, and that's about that. So okay, we'll come back to that. Then, so that's most of the logic that we really need. We're going to now look at how do we do reporting and getting data out. So if we just have a look at the quickly, we've got an audit function here. This is automatically done for us already, so we don't need to do any code here, but this is effectively our audit code. And the next thing we're going to look at is maybe, let's say, account balances. How do we check our account balance? So if we look for account balances here, we go to what's called a read model, which is basically just a way of place to store your store data. Now I'm just doing things in memory at the moment, but this is where you would decide how you want to query it and how you want to store. So you'd go off to databases and so on if you wanted to do something different from having it in just in memory. What do we got here? So we basically are subscribing to certain events. So we're subscribing to the account opened and transaction completed events. And when we process those events, we are effectively going to be changing our data store. So in this case, our data store is just in memory, and we are tracking the account balances over here. And that's effectively a GUID is for the account ID, and whatever the person's balance would be is in the money type over there. Then when we get to the reporting section, we're going to have a query where someone's going to say they want to check their account balance. And in that query, I made a mistake here on the diagram. So this is getting this information from here. I've obviously made a mistake. So I'm not going to mess with the diagram now. Let's move on quickly. So just needed to fix that, and our response is probably going to have exactly the same problem. What do we need to return for the response? We want to return the balance, so we want to return a money type. And it's obviously picking these things up from the diagram, and I didn't do the diagram well enough, so we'll have to just do some stuff in code. So if it's a valid account, okay, let me run through this. So if we get an account open event, we're going to look for an account that's linked over here that has a balance, and then we're going to just effectively add the account. For each transaction, we're going to find the same account, and we're just going to increment the balance by whatever the transaction amount was. When we do the query, we're going to check for the account balance. If there's an account that's matching, if there is, we're going to return the account balance. If there isn't, we're going to send an error message back to the user saying it's an invalid account. So if we can just return a message that says something like okay, and that's that. So that's this piece here, and let's move on to getting our list of available statements and how do we do this the statements read model. So we go here, get some statements read model, and it's going to be a bit bigger. Okay, there's a lot more going on here. I'm just going to generate the usings quickly. Okay, and we need to get to that. So what we're doing is effectively we're subscribing to the account opened event, so we can get out someone's personal information about their name and so on when we generate the statement, their email address and things like that. And we're going to look for all the transactions that are made on that account, and we're going to respond to two queries. We're going to respond to a query that lists out the available monthly statements, and then another query will actually be getting the details of a statement. So we're going to track the customer accounts, and we're going to track all the transactions in our bank. Now these could obviously be pulled from a database and manipulated too, but just leaving it in memory for now. So we need a class over here for customer account. So let's just generate that quickly. And this class, make this public, is basically going to have an account ID, the person's name, their email address, and where they live. So if we get an account opened event coming in, we're basically going to search our customer accounts and make sure if the account doesn't exist yet in this read model, then we're going to just create a new one. And if both of these should pretty much always be true, and we'll go into these loops, and we'll also check if there are bank transactions linked to this account, which shouldn't be, so we should add a link in for that. Okay. Then for each transaction that comes in, we're basically going to look for the bank transaction, make sure that there is a list of transactions for this account, and we're going to add basically add the new transaction to that list. And then so that's basically listening to the events. And if we want to be doing querying, sorry, did this again. If we want to get the list of events, we're basically going to look for all the transactions linked to a specific account, which will give us this. Okay, and we're going to just group them by the month that they're in. and we're going to return a link over here, which is just going to give us a direct link to where we're going to be able to generate a PDF statement. And we're going to just return the list of links here. So so these can just be just a list, be fine. Okay, and probably got the same mistake. Yeah, so our query to get a monthly statement, we basically need an account ID and the month that you care about. So again, we're going to go get the customer's account information, their personal information. We're going to get the list of transactions that we need. For that, we're going to narrow that list of transactions down to a specific month that they were asking for, and then we're going to return our statement. So what do we have in here? We need to just add this. Where did that go? Sorry, just bear with me. Just put this in here. So these are the sorts of small little things that you need to do as a developer to finish out the project, really. Okay. And that's it, really, for the core of what we need to do. We've kind of done everything, right? So we could have a quick look at what we've got so far, and then I'll jump back just to have just to show you what we can do next, just to add PDF functionality to this. So theory, if we run this now, I'm going to run both the API and the Blazor app at the same time. Okay, here we go. So there's the Blazor app, and you'll see immediately it's not styled, and that's on purpose to let you go and pick any Bootstrap or material design theme on the internet that you can find and you like, and then you can customize the look and feel from it. We've basically added all the components that you just need to move around a little bit to style the website like you want. But the security and everything else is already there for you. So if I go to this personal banking section, you'll see it says we're not authorized to reach this page yet until we log in. So we need to go log in. I was already logged in here, but let's say I was logged out. So if it'll bring me to a login page, and I can pick however I want to log in. So, and once I'm logged in, we can go back here, and we can see just some basic links for us to go and action the commands that we were working with. So you can see the list of commands are over here. In the future, I'll have all the queries also, so you can just get to the stuff easily. But and the top piece here, this ID is going to be the aggregate ID that we want to be working with. So in our case, this will be our account ID. Okay. And then on the API side, it's generated a whole bunch of endpoints for us, a whole lot of endpoints related to queries that we can do, like checking the account balance, getting the audit history, doing the statements, as well as the actions like depositing money, opening accounts, and so on, right? And if we can look a little bit deeper, it gives us all the good stuff that you get from Open API, Swagger, and it'll basically show us exactly what we need to input into these endpoints to be able to use them properly. So just one note quickly is I've just disabled the security just for this demo, but you'd basically make sure that everything has got an authorized attribute on it. So once that's on, you can have even tighter security where you require specific scopes. It just makes demos a little bit difficult to because there's more stuff to set up. So I'm just skipping it for now. So if we have a look quickly, what have we got so far? If we go to, let's say, open account, this form here is automatically generated for us. And if you can basically, you don't need to use it in a modal. You could have it on a page or whatever. You just need to reference it, or move the components around. The code is all there for you. You just rearrange it how you feel like. But you'll notice on this form, we'll have our validation and all sorts of things like that already done for us. So let's say I pick my PIN number. This is password protected. I can't see this. If I've got validation on email, checking and stuff like that, and so on, right? So let's say we open our account with 10,000, euro, dollar, whatever you want, right? And we live in Ireland, to make sure we pass the know your customer stuff, and we'll have a PPS number. Okay, so we've opened our account. We can deposit money. We can withdraw money. And then we can go and, using our account number, we can go and check our APIs, right? So we can go to check our account balance and try this out. And we can see our current account balance is 20,700 and so on. We automatically get a full audit history, so which is lovely. I'm going to just show the smaller details of it. Security, and we need to, you can see we've opened an account already, and we've had two transactions happen, 3 transactions. So you can actually see the fees are coming through. Those are the extra transaction I wasn't thinking of. So that's built in for you right from the start. You don't need to worry about that. We can get our list of statements here. Try this out. Account ID again. And we've got one statement available for us up here. So at the moment, if we have a look at that, I'm sure it's not going to do much because we haven't built this functionality yet, right? So we'll do that now and jump back quickly to do the custom coding we'll need to do for adding PDF support. So the first thing we're going to need is some sort of library to give us PDF functionality. And what we basically need to do is just paste in the code that we need here. We're going to reference a library called WKHTML to PDF. I don't know, I found this afternoon, so I'm still new to it. we need to add a NuGet reference for the C# part of that library, and that's just this over here. Okay, and we need to change our startup file so the library gets started, gets referenced and started correctly. And let's get rid of all that stuff. And then what do we need to do? We need to, okay, then we need to set up a controller endpoint so that we can actually use this. So this is effectively something I did a little earlier. Basically what we're doing is we're taking that PDF generator that we just linked up. We've got our query dispatcher that we're going to hook into so we can do queries. And when a call comes in, this is the endpoint. We're basically going to, no, we don't need that statement. We are basically going to run our query. We define it over here, and then we're going to run it by sending it off to our query dispatcher. This is going to return back a list of our, going to return back a statement that matches our query, and then we're going to use the PDF generator combined with a PDF document format that I'm going to show you in a second to generate a PDF document. So, and that format is basically just this page over here. This is all styling. You can just kind of ignore it. Basically, what I'm doing is where's in this compiler? We've got a statement, monthly statement, and we're gonna, I need to look at why this isn't compiling. A second. That's what we name things here. It's a bit different. Let me fix that quickly. Okay, so back to this for a second. So this is what our PDF document is going to look like. We've got a heading that says monthly statement, the person's information, their name, email address, so on, account number, and then the list of transactions. And I'm just shoving this in a table just to show our list. That's basically it. And in theory, we should now have PDF functionality, right? So that wasn't too complicated once we knew where to look for the libraries and so on. So let's run that and see what we get. What's the meaning of that? Oh, okay, it's still not finding this library. I need to make sure it's getting sent to the output. Okay, let's have a look. So if we go back here and let's open a new account, say Alice's account. Bob is probably going to be next. So she starts with a 5,000 euro thing. She lives in Ireland. Let's say she didn't live in Ireland. If you try open the account now, it's going to throw an error, and we're going to get your know your customer alert getting thrown, which will stop that action from happening. We got a nasty looking error message here for now, but this will be tidied up in the near future, and you'll get a nice pretty message. So let's try that again. So we've got Alice. Put in some sort of PIN number or email address, and And this Alice lives in Ireland for sure. Okay, and you'll see we've got validation and everything and so on. Let's let her deposit some more money. Like ATM withdrawal. Draw some money at the branch. Let's say she did it at the Sutton branch. And so on, you know. And basically, what we want to do later on, you could have a piece of your, put it into your menu and so on. But at the moment, we're going to just actually had code for that. But at the moment, we'll just grab it from the list of statements here. We'll just go have a look at what statement we get directly. So we need to get our list of available statements. And from that, we'll get a link to hopefully PDF document with our statement in it. Hopefully. What's going on now? PDF statements. Okay, let's try and figure this out quickly. You're not working. I don't think it's hitting this. That's why. We're on the wrong port. Okay, we'll fix that in a second. Okay, yeah, at least that's getting us in the right direction. Let's try and create Alice's account again. Probably not make her a vampire. Yeah. So deposit some money, you're gonna withdraw some money, withdraw some more. Maybe that's Sutton branch. Deposit some more, and so on. And we could also have a account becomes overdrawn for some reason. So let's say she goes into a branch and she's miraculously allowed to withdraw. She goes to the Hoth branch this time around. She draws 50,000 here. And someone flags it as being overdrawn. Okay, so no. Okay, sorry, I forgot to implement that. I'm not going to let it break now because we can skip that. We don't need to know too much about that. So let's grab the statement again. I don't want to be repeatedly opening accounts. So this URL is slightly wrong from the code I created earlier. And let's run this. Let's see. Voila, boom. So there we go. And we've got a PDF document now. If we try save this, you can see it's a PDF document. And so that's custom code that you could easily write. And yeah, it's got everything here that we were doing earlier. So hope that gives you a little demo of what could be done pretty quickly. Total time is maybe an hour and a half if we had to exclude the yeah, maybe an hour and a half with messing with the PDF and stuff like that, which I think is pretty quick for getting you started on on building a system. And now it could get a lot more complicated if you want, but yeah, it's a good starting point. I hope you enjoyed. Cheers. Bye.